What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well. Happy Christmas, of course. It is Christmas Eve, and although 2020 has been the strangest of years, Christmas is one day away, and that honestly sounds really weird, in all honesty, because this year has absolutely flown by. The years are going way too quick. I mean, I'm getting a bit worried. But look, listen, we are here, of course, to talk about the football team of the year. The hurling team of the year will be out in a couple of days as well. But of course, today we'll be looking at the Gaelic football team of the year from the championship in 2020. Yeah, look, listen, obviously a lot of players to consider, a lot of games to consider. It's been a very quick championship as well, which I think is kind of good in many ways, because it means that a lot of games, a lot of players are still very much fresh in my mind, and of course in a lot of your minds as well. So look, listen, we'll crack straight into it, and of course you'll see on screen the team graphic there on the right hand side. So we'll start off, of course, with the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper, I suppose, was a difficult one in all honesty, because there's three keepers that mainly stand out. And you know, we'll start with Stephen Cluxton first of all. I feel like he's had a very good year. He's had a fantastic year. He hasn't conceded any goals. He's done next to nothing wrong. But because Dublin's defence were so good, he really didn't have a lot to do. You know, I can't remember him having to make any saves in the Mayo game or the Cavan game. Made one big save in the Meath game towards the end, but all in all, he really hasn't had a lot to do in the championship. And to be fair, when he has had to do things, he's done them right. And I think that's the sign of a really good goalkeeper. You know, when there's absolutely nothing to do throughout the entire game, and then maybe a high ball gets floated in, like in the Cavan game, for example, towards Thomas Gallagher, he'd deal with them absolutely fantastically, and his kickouts were more or less perfect. In the Mayo game at times, you know, there were a few questionable kickouts here or there, but I don't think it was really anything to do with him. I think it was more so Mayo were winning a lot of those kickouts, and he actually adapted quite a lot and started going short more and more to try and counteract that. But yeah, Cluxton probably just not involved as someone maybe like Raymond Gallagher, who for me is the goalkeeper of the year. You know, he kicked winning points for Cavan when he needed to. His kickouts were fantastic. He made crucial saves in almost every game that Cavan played in. You know, he made big saves in the Monaghan game, big saves in the Down game, and in the Donegal game as well, right at the death, making key saves to really well and truly get Cavan over the line to win their first Munster title, or Ulster title, for 23 years. So for me, he gets in as goalkeeper. I know David Clarke certainly gets in the discussion. Look, listen, one of the best shot stoppers in the game, a really brilliant servant for Mayo down the years. I don't think he's been as good as kickouts though from Raymond Gallagher. You know, his kickouts haven't quite been the same as Raymond, so I think Raymond Gallagher just about pips it. David Clarke definitely gets in the conversation. Stephen Cluxton probably very unlucky in my opinion, but because Dublin's defence was so good, Stephen Cluxton just he wasn't involved as much, and that's not his fault by any stretch of the imagination. So I think Raymond Gallagher just about edges in as goalkeeper of the year in my opinion. Okay, we'll move on to the full back line, and of course we have the right cornerback, which is Michael Fitzsimons. I think this is an obvious one in all honesty. I think if you're gonna talk about footballer of the year, I think one player that probably isn't getting enough mentions is Michael Fitzsimons. And look, listen, I'm not going to say here and now that he should be footballer of the year in my opinion, but I do think he gets in the conversation. I think when you look at how good Dublin have been in 2020 and you look how good their defence has been, I think Michael Fitzsimons has been absolutely exceptional. You know, he's done a great job on any man he's marked. He's been brilliant at turning the ball over, great at going forward, positionally as well. He's been fantastic, and I think for me, he's an absolute shoe-in for an All-Star this year. He's been a fantastic servant for Dublin down the years as well. I think he's won 8 All-Irelands. Very experienced, and he doesn't always get the credit he deserves in my opinion. I think when a lot of people look at Dublin greats, Michael Fitzsimons is a name that not normally comes into the conversation, and that's maybe because there's so many. But I think he, for me, with his performance in 2020, I think he was absolutely fantastic, and yeah, he gets in at right cornerback. In the middle, of course, we have Davy Byrne. Now, I'm going to be honest, I did have Padraig Faulkner in here originally from Cavan, who had a fantastic year without doubt for Cavan. He was absolutely exceptional. You know, one of the key reasons for Cavan being so tight late on in games was because of Patrick Faulkner, and he's also a player that I think at times has struggled in first half of matches, like in the game versus Monaghan, like in the game versus Down, and he has adapted brilliantly. So for me, it was really touch and go between Faulkner and Davy Byrne. I had Faulkner in here originally, but I've made a late change and I've put Davy Byrne in there. Having rewatched the final with Mayo and gone back and looking at some of the highlights of Dublin's games, I just think he's been unbelievable. Like, what an addition Davy Byrne has been to this team. Just absolutely exceptional. And you know, one of the most impressive things for me, you know, having gone back and watched the Mayo game, was in the first half he was struggling a little bit with Ryan O'Donoghue's pace and Cillian O'Connor, Aidan O'Shea at times drifting into midfield. But I think all in all, in the second half he was exceptional, positionally brilliant as well, gets forward when he needs to, just plays smart, intelligent passes, doesn't get too far forward to the fact that he leaves himself exposed. So I think Davy Byrne gets in there. Moving on to left cornerback, Oisin Mullen, for me, you know, without doubt, the first of a few Mayo players on this list, of course. And yeah, Oisin Mullen, probably arguably Young Player of the Year in 2020. I mean, I'll probably make another video on that at some point. But yeah, what a player, what a year this guy has had. Like, you know, he played in the under-20 Connacht Championship game against Galway earlier in the year. He actually played in midfield. So the fact that he's now playing at left cornerback and he's come into the team and just adapted and adjusted the way he has is absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. And, you know, he could have even went to Australia earlier in the year. There was some talks about that. And what a talent he is, getting forward, so pacey, reminds me a lot of a very young Jack McCaffrey. And if he can add that element of kicking points, maybe scoring goals, look, listen, he is a cornerback, that's not his job, but if he can add that to his game, we could be talking about a generational talent, in my opinion. Very, very good player, and for the age that he is as well, you can only see things getting better for him. We'll move into the defence, of course, and we'll start with the wing backs, of course. So on the right hand side, you had Paddy Durkin. On the left hand side, Owen McLaughlin. I think I'll mention these two in the one breath because they're both very similar, both play for the same team, and they're almost a package deal in many ways. Owen McLaughlin and Paddy Durkin, fantastic stuff altogether. I think Paddy Durkin, first of all, we all know his talent, we all know what he offers to this team. He's been in this Mayo team for quite a long time, and he just had an exceptional year getting forward. And Mayo were so attacking this year, they caused so many problems for so many teams. And even in that Dublin game in the first half, Dublin struggling at times to deal with some of those overlapping runs from McLaughlin and from Paddy Durkin. And even in the Roscommon game, I thought Paddy Durkin was just unbelievable. It was a top class performance, man of the match on the day. And Owen McLaughlin, who's come into the team, obviously new player, one of the many new young players who come into this side, and kind of similarly to Oisin Mullen, like he does have that threat obviously going forward. He's kicked a couple of points already, and as a wing back, that's kind of what you want to see. But you expect in the next couple of years that if he kicks on a little bit more and he gets even better, you know, again, you could be talking about a serious talent in this Mayo side. So for me, he gets in on the left hand side at wing back. In the middle was a difficult one. You know, you could have gone with Kieran Brady, who was outstanding for Cavan, but in the end I've gone with John Small. And I suppose just bringing it back to the wing back position, actually, obviously there were other options there. Robbie McDade had a brilliant year for Dublin. I think he was unfairly black-carded in the final. Could have easily got in there. You know, he got himself a goal and a point, and 2 points in fact in the semi-final. So Robbie McDade a little bit unlucky to miss out from McLaughlin, but I think McLaughlin's overall performance throughout the entire championship was a little bit better. But I think McDade, as the championship went on, probably came close enough in many ways. But yeah, getting back, of course, to the position in the middle, number 6, of course, it is John Small. Yeah, fantastic season for John Small. You know, as I said before, the Dublin defence in general have been exceptional, and John Small has definitely been that player in the middle for me. He's been brilliant, and again, kind of similar. Ryan O'Donoghue was cutting past him a couple of times in the first half of the Mayo game. But one thing that was always impressive about John Small was that he always covered the ground. He didn't make rash challenges. He didn't dive in. He didn't, give away yellows or black cards. He was always very composed, and that's what I like the most about John Small, is that even in difficult moments when players are driving at him, they might beat him, but they still won't get the goal chance because, in terms of recovery, he's absolutely brilliant at just making up the ground. He's very pacey, and I think he's had a very, very good year indeed. And John Small, very underrated player for Dublin, in my opinion. Probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. Again, following on from a brilliant club campaign with Ballymun. So absolutely fantastic from John Small. Gets in at number 6. And yeah, that makes up, of course, the half-back line. Moving on to the midfield. bit of a tricky one. Brian Fenton though, first of all, without doubt gets in there, absolutely no question, no arguments. Everyone knows the threat that Brian Fenton poses to this Dublin side, and in general he's just unbelievable. You know, he's almost like a basketball player playing in a Gaelic football team, because the way he controls the ball, the way he moves with the ball, how tall he is, you know, he's pacey, he's quick, there's not much he can't do, and he almost run out of words to describe how good he is. And without doubt he gets in there on the left hand side of the midfield. On the right hand side, it is a bit tricky, because I did have Thomas Galligan in there originally, and I've made a couple, I've made another late change here as such, and I've put James McCarthy in the midfield, because I just don't think you can leave James McCarthy out. He's just had an exceptional year altogether. I think in the final in particularly, he was man of the match in my opinion. I know RTE gave it to Con O'Callaghan, and look, listen, that's fair enough, but I thought McCarthy was just unbelievable, just getting forward, making those driving runs. And I think when you have him and Fenton in the midfield together, they are just the perfect midfield package in my opinion. Probably arguably the best midfield duo of all time in Gaelic football, maybe even in Gaelic games altogether. Like, he's just been unbelievable. You know, maybe earlier in the year he wasn't a shoe-in for an all-star, but I think as the season's gone on he's got better and better. In the Cavan game he was fantastic, and when he's had to fill in even at wing-back he's done a great job as well. So for me, James McCarthy and Brian Fenton getting in the midfield together, and I don't think we can be surprised about that whatsoever. So we move into the half-forward line, and on the right-hand side it is Thomas Galligan, and as I said before, I had him in the midfield originally, and I actually had Martin Riley in this position originally, but I've taken Martin Riley out. Look, listen, he's had a fantastic year for Cavan, Martin Riley, without doubt, you know, probably one of the unsung heroes in many ways. But I think Thomas Galligan, you just can't leave him out. You know, he's had a tremendous year. And look, listen, he was named at midfield the majority of time, but he did drift around the half-forward line and at times go in a full forward to cause a couple of problems under the high ball. And we've seen him do that, you know, for example, in the Donegal game and even in the Dublin game, although Cluxton dealt with the high ball brilliantly. I still think Thomas Galligan was brilliant at getting in and around the square to cause a lot of problems. So yeah, I think Thomas Galligan gets in there on the right hand side. You know, when he came off the bench in all the games he did, he made a massive impact. I don't even think it was 100% 9 times out of 10. I think he was probably carrying injuries. You know, after the Donegal game, it looked like he'd been in a boxing match. You know, it was incredible stuff. So yeah, I think Thomas Galligan, without doubt, gets in the side, in the half-forward line, at right half-forward. In the middle, Kieran Kilkenny, no surprises again. I think another player that gets in the Footballer of the Year conversation. I think a lot of the players on this team obviously get on the Footballer of the Year conversation, but I think Kieran Kilkenny more than most. And what's impressed me the most about Kieran Kilkenny this year, especially from a Dublin point of view, is that he always had talent to kick points, to kick ridiculous points. You know, if anyone ever makes a highlight reel of Kieran Kilkenny, well, I think they should, because, you know, some of his points, some of his goals, some of his overall play is absolutely exceptional. And, you know, sometimes in previous years maybe he had to do the hard work in that half-forward line. He'd have to drift back into midfield, he'd have to do a lot of the defensive work, and maybe he didn't have that kind of free role that he has now to get forward. But in 2020 he has had that, and he's got forward more often than not, and we've seen the rewards for it. He's chipped away with points, he's got goals, he's supported the attack brilliantly, and I think all in all, Kieran Kilkenny getting in there, without doubt, fantastic player. And without doubt, you know, he's going to be one of the top players for Dublin for years to come. And I think what we've seen this year is, you know, he's been in the side for a long time, but this year really was his peak in my opinion. This is really where we've seen the absolute best out of him, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Moving on to the left half forward, and I've gone for Con O'Callaghan. I don't think anyone can really be too surprised. I mean, what a year Con O'Callaghan has had for Dublin. As the championship's gone on, he's got better and better. You know, I think the bar is set so high for Con O'Callaghan at times as well, where, you know, people have these expectations of Con O'Callaghan, maybe in a similar extent to David Clifford, where people just think so much that if he doesn't, you know, produce, or he doesn't produce a 10 out of 10 performance every game, we think that he hasn't showed up. And I think, you know, when you look back at the Meath game, the Cavan game, and even this game against Mayo as well, just exceptional stuff altogether, and there's no way you can leave him out in my opinion. Look, listen, there are other options in a left half forward. You know, you could have put Tommy Conroy in there, who had a very good year indeed for Mayo, but I think all in all, Con O'Callaghan just gets in there in my opinion. I think he was absolutely brilliant. So, you know, you could put Martin Riley in this position as well. But again, Conor O'Callaghan for me just about edges it, gets in there left half forward. Moving into the full forward line, and we'll start with the right hand side. Dean Rock gets in there, and yeah, I think one thing about Dean Rock is, you know, he never looks like he breaks a sweat. And maybe sometimes that can kind of, you know, impact your judgment a bit with Dean Rock, where you think, oh, could he do more? Could he be doing more? But I think all in all, an exceptional year altogether for Dean Rock. You know, his free taken 9 times out of 10 has been spot on. He's been in the right position for goals. He's almost like the tip of the iceberg with this Dublin side. Like, all the other players put the cake together. You know, the likes of Kieran Kilkenny, the likes of Conor O'Callaghan, the likes of Brian Fenton. But Dean Rock's always a man to just finish it off, to get the goal, to do the easy work. And look, listen, it's not easy 9 times out of 10, but I think positionally he's always in the right space. How many, you know, fisted goals do we see from Dean Rock down the years? So I think without doubt he gets in there, in my opinion. Again, another dark horse for Footballer of the Year. Don't think he gets it. I still think there's a good few players that have been ahead of him in the pecking order in 2020. But I think all in all, Dean Rock without doubt gets up there and gets in at number 13. And dead centre of full forward, Conor Sweeney. Yeah, without doubt, Conor Sweeney gets in here. The only Tipperary player, of course, to make it in here. And when you look at his scoring, all in all, I don't think you can leave Conor Sweeney out. Like, his point against Limerick in the last minute of the game against Limerick, of course, you know, going into injury time, of course, to force the game to go to extra time in the Munster semi-final, was exceptional stuff. And what a year he had. You know, obviously scoring 1-9 in the semi-final as well, despite you know, being on the losing side. Just a really, really good player altogether. The difference he made in the Cork game, you know, kicking beautiful points, and he's a fantastic player. He's a really good player for Tipperary. He's going to be one of their stars for years and years to come. And I always looked at Conor Sweeney in many ways and thought, there's an exceptional footballer there, there's a really good talent there, but you just didn't always see it for Tipperary. Even in that Limerick game, for example, he probably wasn't even having his best game until that point, and I think that point maybe just propelled him on. I thought he was superb in the Cork game, and the work he done for Tipperary in general as well, just supporting the other forwards, drifting back into midfield when he needed to, catching high ball if he needed to as well. So I think all in all, Conor Sweeney without doubt gets up there in my opinion. And of course at number 15, last but not least, it is Cillian O'Connor, and I don't think anyone can be too surprised by this altogether. I mean, scored 4-9 against Tipperary, scored I think 9 points against Dublin. I think all in all he scored something like 545 or probably even more in the entire championship season. You know, got a goal against Leitrim, couple of points against Galway as well on Roscommon. So I think, yeah, Cillian O'Connor, absolutely fantastic footballer altogether, and he is definitely probably the favourite to win Footballer of the Year. You know, I'll probably make a video on that at a different point, maybe kind of going through all the ins and outs of who should win Footballer of the Year, but certainly Cillian O'Connor makes it on that list and probably is on top of that list in all honesty. And yeah, you know, he is an exceptional talent altogether. Think Dublin did a great job on him in the second half. In all honesty, he probably struggled a bit in the second half, but I don't think it was all down to him. I think it was the delivery into him and probably some of the other changes Dublin made to kind of counteract what Mayo were doing. But yeah, I think all in all, just he had a really, really good year this year. The 4-9 against Tipperary was unbelievable stuff. And look, listen, I know some people will say it's Tipperary and defensively they weren't doing too well, but his reading of the game is probably better than anyone. I think it's similar to Dean Rock to a certain extent, where Dean Rock gets in the right positions at the right time, and Cillian O'Connor has done that all year, just catching ball, turning men, and just finishing absolutely superbly when he needed to. So yeah, without doubt, of course, Cillian O'Connor gets in there at number 15. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below who you would have put in instead. I know Niall Scully maybe was a potential option as well. I probably forgot to mention him, but I think all in all, scoring wise, probably didn't offer as much for Dublin going forward, but I do think he still had a part to play in Dublin's success this year as well. So yeah, do let me know down in the comments below who you would have in here instead. But yeah, as you can see there in full, this is my Gaelic football team of the year. So do let me know down in the comments below what you think, and yeah, subscribe if you haven't already. Trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're not too far away. We're getting closer and closer day by day. So yeah, leave a like, subscribe, share this out to as many people as you can, and I'll see you in the next one.